Welcome to Pampale Podcast, where we are unpacking opinions and changing destinations. I am your host, Shirley Altador, where each week we will chat about how to rise strong out of all types of obstacles that come with relationships. Through personal life experiences and discussions ranging from infidelity, trust, forgiveness, sex, heartbreak, self-love, and so much more. I am passionate and obsessed to provide guidance to every woman to create a better life. Let's dive in, pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. With me, your virtual girlfriend. Welcome back to another episode of Pampale Podcast. Today we have a guest, Liza, who is currently the host of 8 Billion Podcasts and professionally a real estate expert in Southern California. She is the managing partner of the Myriad Group, a boutique real estate firm based in Orange County. She is here to show others the power of what loving yourself and stepping into your power can do for you. How are you today?
I'm excellent, Shirley. Thanks for having me
Wonderful.
on. I'm super excited.
I know you are. I know you are. I had to change into like my radio voice because we were just sitting here literally chatting it up.
My heart's beating fast because I'm anticipating the questions you're going to ask me.
I
But
just made her
these by far
extremely nervous.
but these by far are the best podcasts to do. So I'm ready.
Wonderful. So I'm going to pass you your mic so you can share with us your story and what made you change how you love yourself now and putting yourself first.
Well, thanks for allowing me this platform to share my story. And I know that somewhere along the line, you're going to have some really good questions for me. So, to the audience, my name, of course, is Liza Florida. And thank you, Shirley, for the amazing introduction. So, so I have the podcast called 8 Billion, which was launched in October of 2020. So I'm hitting my 1 year anniversary, and it's been an absolutely amazing ride. I'm finishing off season 3, and we'll launch season 4 on the anniversary this coming October. However, the ride to get there was very interesting because, as we know, like this podcast is all about relationships, and relationships truly dominate everything in our life. So I would have to say, to get there, probably for me, one of the single most relationships that have been most important would be with myself. So I know most of your guests will talk about relationships with other people, but I'll explain why. And I know that across the board, there's this whole emerging power of like loving yourself, but it is. And that's the reason why I'm happy to share this story, because the single most important relationship I had was myself, because it took me over 40 years to actually discover truly who I am, so I can move forward in forging more fulfilling relationships. What led up to launching the 8 Billion podcast was the passing of my mother in 2018. So she is by far as far as another human being, has been the most influential part of my life, because she, of course, was the person that, of course, raised me. We have, like I said, I'm in real estate, and professionally, I'm in real estate, and it was started by my mother. So she was absolutely, a driven woman, and all this, a driven woman, an amazing, loving mother, like a humanitarian by any means. So she did it all, and I had to follow in those footsteps. But it was so hard because she was very successful. And I had a hard time being raised by someone that was super successful and following in those footsteps, because, of course, it was my own path, So as a human being, though, she was the person that had the most influence on my life. But it wasn't as easy growing up. You know what I mean?
So was she a licensed real estate broker?
She was.
And are you a licensed real estate broker?
I am a licensed real estate salesperson. My brother is the broker.
Your brother's the broker. Oh, I'm licensed too. I'm licensed in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Nice, interesting facts when you
Right?
like see how you and your guests connect. So now your mom had a real estate company. Was she doing residential or commercial?
She was doing residential.
She was doing residential. So now I'm assuming, when did she become a real estate agent? How far back
So,
can you remember as when you were a little
oh,
girl?
interesting. I remember being raised in a family in real estate. So she came here from the Philippines in like 1968, and she was an accountant. So what ended up happening is for many years she did taxes of people, and she would tell them to buy homes as a tax shelter. Excuse me. And so what
Oh,
ended up
okay.
happening in 1988, she decided, well, shoot, man, I'm making all these real estate agents rich. I might as well go become a real estate agent. And she
Yes.
transitioned in 1988 to becoming a real estate salesperson.
Okay. All
And
right.
then
So
from
then she
there,
did that and then
mhm,
went and got her broker's license.
eventually we get her broker's license. But all three of us kids, she had us get licensed. So me and my brother got licensed at 18. Like it was like our whole professional career.
Why did she do that? As like job security? Because I will say, as me holding a license, you holding a license, I get the logic behind it. It was something I would love for my kids to do because it's a backup. But it's one of those things where you either love or you hate real estate, like any job.
Mm-hmm.
Why did she have you guys do it?
I think probably for the security. I mean, not necessarily because there is no security, right? Because it's
True.
really commission. It's like
It's strictly
feast or
commission
famine.
based. Yes.
It's
And you
very
got to be
feast or
good.
famine,
Yeah.
and we saw that pretty much a lot in our. But because she was a great businesswoman, and she was an accountant by trade, she was able to actually do numbers and calculate things for a lot of the Filipino families. Because my like I said, she's immigrant,
Got
female
it. Got
immigrant,
it.
empowered woman. She knows how to do
Yes.
taxes. She knows how to do budgeting. And she said, "Oh,
Okay.
it's simple. When you budget this way, this is how a house can become affordable."
Got it.
And
Got it.
because
Okay.
and because she did so well in real estate, of course, she wanted to pass that type of, like either those skill sets, one, and then of course, if we did it very well, then it could create a lot of wealth for us.
Got it. Now, was
But
your
what
father in the picture?
Yes, my father was in the picture. He was more on like the engineering side, so he had like 30 years of experience. I mean, 30 years of service with Ball Corporation. So
Okay.
he
Okay.
was the stability. He was the stability in terms of regular
I
income.
know what you mean because there's seven of them. So he was the earned income where his was a little more stable, the every 2 week or the every, however his pay structure was
Correct.
set up, because your mom was strictly off of commission. And we know how that works when you're off of
Yes.
commission. You have to manage your money well.
Yes. And yeah. And it's like I said, it's feast or famine. And I mean, but
Yes.
like when she made really good money, it was great. It was 10 times the salary of my father.
I see. Gotcha. 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 I see. So now at 18, you and your brother, is it just you and your brother?
And I have an older sister.
An older sister. All three of you got your license as soon as you guys turned 18. Your mother made sure that happened.
No, interesting enough, me and my brother got licensed at 18. My sister's 8 years older than I am. I'm the middle child. And
Okay.
so my sister went to medical school first.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
my sister went to medical school. She graduated, but she went into medical research. But
I
because
see.
there was a time frame where, if you guys remember, prior to 2008, when the market was hot, similar to what it is now, we were
Yes.
just killing it in real estate. So even my sister was doing real estate. We were like this whole team that did so well.
Got it. Got
So,
it.
so that would be the purpose of my mom really, I mean, it could create massive wealth if that, and
It
I'm
can.
pretty sure that's really the it was the game plan from my
Okay.
mom's. However, we hit the mortgage meltdown
Mm-hmm.
in 2008, and
Mm-hmm.
however, I should say not and We were fortunate because my mom had seen many
That's what
cycles of
you're
the real estate
shifted your
industry, and we
focus to.
pivoted in
Correct. So from a
2006,
client
and instead we
standpoint, we
started
were
going
starting to do
after
short sales
banks
where, and I'm
because
not
we
too sure,
knew
Shirley, how long
that the
you've been in
foreclosure
real
market is
estate.
happening, because we started
However,
seeing signs
from
of
that
short sales
perspective,
first.
you're dealing with the
I
client.
see.
You take,
She was
of
paying
course, the
attention to the
finances,
shift
and
of
you
the
submit it
market,
to the bank
which
because
is
what you're
very
asking for
important.
is a
So when you say
sales
you started
price
going after
Lower
banks,
than the actual balance of it. So from that
exactly.
standpoint, we were actually servicing clients. But in addition to that, I pivoted and went from like sales into business development, and I created a lot of our resumes, and we started going after banks. Like Countrywide was the first bank we landed, which was huge for us, because if you'll remember back in 2008, Countrywide had one in every four mortgages was a Countrywide loan.
Okay. I didn't get my license till I got my license in '08,
Mm-hmm.
right around when the market was crashing, but I never really truly worked full time. My intention is real estate investment. So I only help friends and family.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, real estate investment is really my focus. And I got my license so I can get paid
Right.
if I purchase something
Mm-hmm.
and for extra knowledge
That's
and have
amazing.
access to systems that I normally would not have access to. Since I was interested in being an investor, I didn't want to have to consistently reach out to a realtor. So that was the primary goal of getting my license. So I don't do real estate how your mother did it
How we
or
did
even
it.
how you did it. Yeah.
We were really full time office 9 to 5. Yeah.
Mhm.
She
Yeah.
was she was an amazing driven woman.
Well, that's good. That's good. I do love real estate. That's, another passion when it comes to real estate. How you can, of course, I'm all about the negative and the positive, how you could take dirt and turn it into like a
Right?
miraculous castle.
Right? Exactly. Interestingly enough, right now though, Shirley, my brother's a developer.
Oh, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
So
brother took over the business after mom passed because he's the broker?
brother's the broker, yes.
Okay.
But also, while my mom was, because I told you, like, I lost my mom in 2018, but
Yes.
prior to my mom passing, my brother went and got his master's in real estate development, and ended up becoming
Oh,
a development as a real estate developer.
okay, gotcha. So I mean, who's running the office that mom had created?
I am now.
You
Yeah.
are. You are in the
Hmm.
office. So your brother are you guys working together but doing different projects?
Yeah, well, so my brother is just the standing, because right now we're pretty small. It's like me, my brother, and my sister who own it, and
Got it.
for the most part, like, we are just maintaining any of the clients that we previously had, which is which is not very small. We just haven't marketed to them because my brother is more focused full time on development. And of
Got it.
course, for me, following my passion, I've been doing 8
8
billion,
billion.
yeah, the 8 billion podcast. But of course, professionally, I'm still licensed, and we handle a lot of the client base. But right now, it's just been so hard. On a side note, I just wanted to say, and I'm not too sure in New Jersey, just because of how crazy real estate is. It's so crazy that a lot of my clients are even priced out of this market right now.
It's a seller's market. It's crazy. Is it like that in California right now?
Oh, like, I'll give you an example. I had a client that qualified for 650 at the beginning of this year, but they had to take care of some, like, some credit
Mm-hmm.
issues and all this kind of stuff. We come out like now, August, September, right? They pre-qualify, and of course, I don't think much has changed, right? So there's still that, but that same housing market for them at 650 is now 720.
It's crazy. I
It's
have
crazy.
people that list their homes. My mentor that I work with, who does this full time, him and his partner, there was someone that listed their home for 525. They offered them over $80,000 over the asking price.
Yeah.
Over $80,000.
Right.
So you're telling me even if I'm approved for 650, I
Mm-hmm.
need to be looking at a home at $500,000 because now I have to consider this outrageous price I need to offer?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So not only
It's
are they qualified,
crazy.
yeah. So, and then what's happening here too in California, I'm pretty sure across the nation, is they're offering over, right? They're overbidding, let's say 50. I had a client that bid over 150 and they're releasing appraisal
What
contingency.
the over 150 on a house that they were that's
Yeah, this
ludicrous.
one was like mid Wilshire area. So LA.
Exactly. You if you're approved for like $600,000, I got to be looking at $400,000 because I have to offer way over.
Yeah.
This is insane, but this is what the market is. It's no more, oh, your home's at 515. I'm going to offer you 475. Not right now. This is not the days. You want to buy a house, you need to go in aggressively. Or
Yeah.
you ain't getting it.
Or you ain't getting it. You just sit out. That's what I tell my clients. I was just like, and to be honest, like I hit these like big, like massive, like over 1 million, 2 million, like that's career high for me, right? And then all of a sudden, like I had this, well, of course I was concentrating on the 8 billion podcast, but at the same time though too, like I said, if my clients were priced out, if everyone was in a frenzy and each of the homes had like 20 bids on them, they're overbidding, releasing appraisal contingencies. You really do have to be looking at 400,000. There's nothing at 400,000 in California.
California is expensive. I wouldn't even want to live
really
out there.
Expensive.
California is pricey.
That's why we have this mass exodus happening right now.
I know. And let's not talk about San Francisco because it's the worst out of California.
Is it? I'm in SoCal, so.
San Francisco is expensive as hell, girl. People are practically homeless.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, California's pricey, yes, but San Francisco is in a league of their own.
Yeah, it's true. That was even happening before this whole.
Yeah. They're really expensive. So, as we're getting to our little real estate. So now let's tread back. Mom passes away and mom was sick.
Yes, my mom passed away of bile duct cancer, which is liver, but it was her second round of cancer. She survived the first round, which was breast cancer. Then she got, in 2017, she was diagnosed, I think maybe stage 3. The doctor didn't really specify what stage it was, but we knew that it was very serious or it was further along because it took them 3 months to diagnose it, which shouldn't have been the case.
Gotcha. So now mom is gone. So before we start talking about your romantic relationships, talk about your childhood with your mother and how that was. Because a lot of times it seems like you have a positive story to tell about your childhood. Sometimes most people's childhood can be scary, not always positive, not always pleasant. A lot of, like I talked to one friend yesterday, she hated going home after school.
No.
So how was your childhood?
Well, interestingly enough, right?
And were you born here? Sorry,
I was born here. I was born in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And here is the thing. Like, I think it took me a while to really just be open and what I'm saying is me having a podcast too. These are people that are talking openly and authentically and they're sharing it. And that's what makes their story amazing. It also makes the person feel more liberated because they can free themselves. And this is the age that we're living in. It's more authenticity, right?
Yes.
We're more accepting and less judgmental. And so I was just like, look, I'm asking everyone to pour their hearts out. And yet I was like, am I doing it? And it's not that I was not doing it on purpose. It was just, I was never in the seat to do that.
Exactly.
But now that as I circulate through different podcasts, right, now I'm finding myself in the hot seat and I'm like, but here's what makes it interesting though. An amazing mother that was very driven, very loving. And like I said, she's, like in her own right, if she could become a humanitarian, she did give a lot to the Philippines. Oh. However, she was the marriage wasn't good. So there was a lot of, and I don't even know how I was like, oh my God, in their marriage, of course, my mom suffered, not suffered, but there was a lot of infidelity,
On whose end?
On my father's end. And so,
and remember we talked about this before, girl? I think infidelity is prominent in all relationships. I went through it. I was a victim and a perpetrator. So I get it. I get it.
Exactly. And that's why this podcast is amazing because it's all facets and all angles of where it's coming from.
Yes.
Right. Telling the story. So from the age of 3, I was always watching my parents fight because, of course, the issues that would come up, and I was the middle child, and you know, I was the one trying to get my parents to like make up and all this kind of stuff, but I wouldn't understand it until later, the pain, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have from one perspective, I have a mother that was an amazing businesswoman, a go-getter, and all this kind of stuff. But on the back end, she really had a struggling marriage.
That's where she hid her pain. And I
That's where she
realized
had her pain.
women, especially, we put up this facade. A lot of us, when we're going through something, we resort back to something that we have control over. And when my therapist was telling me at the time, I couldn't understand. And he was like, Shirley, you ever stop and think the reason why some of the jobs you do are dominating positions and make you feel like you're in control because you feel like you're losing control in your relationship. So I can see why your mom dominated the real
Dominated
estate industry, because she had control over that
that.
piece in her life.
And she poured her energy, like that was another thing too. It was amazing. Like I look back now and see how she poured her energy into that, because of course it would reap rewards that would,
Yes.
that would make her feel good about herself, receive all the accolades, and then on top of that, she
Yes.
had an amazing heart.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting: my relationship with my father was amazing, but here's the thing: I had a father who, had committed infidelity. I didn't condone what he did, but I loved him as a father.
Mm-hmm.
So that would lead to many years of me having skewed visions, or skewed understandings, or of what relationships were. I'm a strong, powerful, amazing woman on the outside, but yet for many years like I was saying, I was circulating through relationships where I couldn't create these boundaries.
Yep. You were scorned from a child, and it's those generational curses that were continuing, and you don't even realize it's happening until one day you sit down and you're like, oh my fucking God, like history's repeating itself.
History
And I'm
is
damaged from
yes.
what I see from when I was in the home. Now, was there more than one woman? And did your parents end up staying together until her last day? Was she still with your father?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
She was
Did
still.
they work it out eventually? Because I do feel people can take their negative and poor decisions that they make and turn it into a positive. So, like, as an adult, the last maybe 10 years of their relationship, were there changes, or even 20 years, whatever? I'm just throwing numbers out there. Did you see like a much better marriage?
No, interestingly enough, it wasn't a much better marriage. It was kind
Um,
of like, and I don't know if this is even just for like the Filipino culture or anything like that, but sometimes when, like it's interesting though, in our generation, it was just like a lot of us are divorced. And in their generation, they stay together. They really, it's just like through thick or thin, but it's really an unhealthy dynamic, because it's a vicious cycle that I don't even think that they even knew that they were having. It was just always this forgiveness, but not really forgiving. You know what I mean?
you're right. Forgiveness, not really forgiving. Therapy back then in the days, because I would say my mom was born in 58. My mom was born in 58. So, you know, they're in an older time too. They, to this day, I feel like they need to be separated, and they're not. They're still together.
Yeah.
Therapy is not something that they will do, because you know why? They have that mindset of, I'm not sharing my business with anybody, but y'all need help. Y'all need help. Like, you need to do something. So I get it. It's, you stay together, but it's a toxic situation
Toxic
that
cycle,
your
yes.
parents are in. And it's a toxic repeating cycle. And they put smiles up outside of the home. And then behind closed doors, your mom has some sadness that she hasn't dealt with
Of
because
course.
of this infidelity. Because as a woman, and I think you can understand, regardless if you've been into it or not, fidelity hits a woman much harder, I feel, than it does a man. And I may be incorrect. Men, if you don't believe me, you can comment, let me know what you think. But it hits a woman harder. Why? Because we view sex differently. We are intimate and passionate, and, you know, our soul is connected when we're having sex with somebody. A man, you can like fuck a prostitute and go live your life like nothing happened.
As if nothing happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a different type of connection for us. So I feel like that's why infidelity always is harder on a woman.
No, and then I had even asked this to other men, like whether it was guy friends, and I said, is it different for you? Because like for us, it's an emotional thing. Like I can't just
Yes.
like I can't just drop my panties because I just want to have sex, right?
No,
So I'll
90%
deal with
of
it.
women can't do
Dildo
that.
then.
No, and we're not talking about sex workers. I respect what y'all do, but they're not part of this topic because
Yes.
they're in a different breed of their own. But 90% or most women are emotionally connected.
Yes, absolutely. And men have admitted, some guy friends that I've known have admitted that they can have sex and not have an emotional attachment because it could be a physical thing for them. So it is
You're
harder
absolutely
for a
right.
woman.
Yep. It's much harder for a woman. They can detach the two. They can have a whole family at home, love their wife to death, and go sleep with this woman, and it means absolutely nothing to them. And a woman is trying to wrap their head around, like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Right?
So I get it. And I can feel your mom's pain. I totally can understand and feel her pain. And, you know, we all have stories. So how did this affect your relationships as you started getting older and dating?
So interestingly enough, like I told you, I'm a single mom. I've been married once, and divorced. But that was just the beginning of me actually experiencing relationships from a different perspective because from that point forward, I don't know if it's even, like I told you, a 10 to 15 year, I mean, my son's 17. There's a 10 to 15 year span even till now. I haven't had, to be honest with you, I haven't had a relationship that's lasted longer than a year.
Oh.
I'm 43 now.
That can be a negative and a positive because you're cutting it off before you're probably noticing some red flags and cutting it off, but also are you giving the relationship time to build?
Well, here's the thing. I have to take it back. I had one long-term relationship, and this was a long-term relationship prior to me marrying my husband, or my ex-husband, I should say.
Got it.
So I felt like I had, like I had, like, I knew healthy boundaries. It's kind of confused. I mean, I would say, I knew healthy boundaries back then. I think there was just a certain innocence. As time goes by and you progress into this generation, what ends up happening is not everyone is living or being in relationship through a heart space, because now dating in this day and age is all about what is the proper text, do we call, you know what I mean? It's not all of those things anymore, where it's like, when you're so young, it's so innocent, you'll call and you won't even think twice about it, because yes, you're in a relationship with that person. Now there's like, if I get a text, well, let me wait a few hours because, or give it, 10, 15 minutes. It's like people are living from a place where they're operating more from a psychological standpoint than from a heart space.
You're absolutely right. You're 43, I'm 38. The time difference for us is not huge. I didn't get my first cell phone, which was a block flip phone, till I was 17. Yeah. So in my younger years, all the option I really had was to call. If you weren't home, you weren't home. You waited till you get home to talk to the person, because we didn't have text message. Even though I'm technically a millennial because I was born that first year that it started, 83. Or was it 82? I might be wrong. It's either 82 or 83. I'm literally at the beginning of that millennial. But I'm at that gap where it's like, I didn't raise up with all these devices. There was no social media, no Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, no Snapchat, none of that. After school, you played outside. You didn't play outside, you read a book.
Yeah.
We had Nintendo. I think that's what was hot then.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a gamer.
Nintendo.
I wasn't a gamer. So my options were limited. So I totally understand what you mean by people are not operating from the heart.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what ended up happening for me on a spiritual sense. I just feel like the universe was teaching me a little bit more about myself, but I couldn't see it from that standpoint. And who would know that could be found in a spiritual from a standpoint. Not everyone is bound to take a spiritual journey. I think that you're seeing it more and more because we're in this state of the world is upside down because of the pandemic. So people are turning within or looking for an outside source that, that governs them, something like of a higher being. But not everyone's going to take that spiritual journey.
Exactly.
So for me, I had to look at certain patterns that I was doing. And it's not like, not like when you start dating someone, it comes with an instruction book. But for me, the patterns was like, I would have 6 months of like dating, and then it would just either fall apart, whether the guy started changing, or I can't say that for me, it's not that, because I would end it early on if I was dating someone and I didn't find interest. And I was always so mindful of people's feelings that it was just like, I'd just be able to do that. But with guys, it was just so weird that I was attracting almost the same type of pattern. Now, I'm not saying that every guy was a cheater or every guy, you know what I mean? Or every guy had different secrets. It was just more of like, it would start hot and heavy and passionate. But then for some reason, it would come to this space where it would be more like a chaser. Like, you know what I mean? Like something would go wrong. And then all of a sudden I found myself in a situation where the person's feelings would change, but I would chase. And I was just like, this does not feel good.
Exactly.
But when it happened 7 to 8 years almost in, like in a row, I was like, wow, this is a really big pattern that I have to look at.
So how long have you been single now?
So for
like truly single, not claiming any man?
Truly, here's what's really interesting, Shirley. I ended up having a long distance relationship.
Girl, that's another beast. Long distance.
During the pandemic. So I had an emotional relationship. Oh my gosh. This is you know what? This is a really good podcast because this is where all the details go.
This is how it ends up happening. All these things start popping up. I'll ask one question. Girl, let me tell you.
Right?
I'm telling you, that's why I tell you, sit on your couch, pull up your wine so you can hear all the gossip because it's coming out. They spilling the tea.
Okay. Last relationship that I had was when I talk about like the person being here, because it was still a long distance relationship. It was Oregon. I got into this relationship. It was second time around. It was after my mom's passing. Okay. That was the last physical relationship that I had. You know what I'm saying? Where I actually 2018, correct. But physical. In terms physical relationship, yes. Like even if it was long distance, we saw each other, we got on the plane and all that kind of stuff. So 2018, gotcha. It actually has been since my mom's passing. Now, in just this last year, I got into a relationship with someone overseas. So what ended up happening was we met on a project, and then interestingly enough, we created this bond, and we of course we did Zoom dates and all this kind of stuff. And it was long distance, and because with the pandemic there was, like restrictions, international restrictions. Yep. His country in particular was one of the strictest in the world. So if that gives you guys a hint,
you don't need to share with us. Just the long distance gives me anxiety.
Right. And so
overseas at that. Oh.
Mm-hmm. And it lasted for 4 months. It was a deeply emotional and spiritual relationship for me. But it was another thing where when it didn't, like when things went, things again, like when it didn't seem to go in the right direction, but when it didn't, I was able, through all the spiritual work that I did, I was able to at least see clearly, not tell my stories of all these unworthiness and abandonment. Mm-hmm. And I was able to pivot from it so much faster because I understood who I was. That's so I didn't blame myself and say, oh, here's another one in the books. I just said, look, if he's in a position where he can't go much further, I can't blame myself for, or I can't make myself insufficient because of that.
Absolutely. And that's
Where
good you were able to realize that.
Right. Where a lot of women for many years will, like, either through even infidelity or not being able to forge a relationship, will start blaming themselves for being insufficient, not worthy, abandoned. This is where it makes this is where it makes probably the biggest impact on the podcast, is that is for many years it took me, me realizing that I was chasing because I was something insufficient in myself. But it's not an easy process to either rebirth and change that part, because you're going through the psychology of it, the emotions of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your childhood of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I had my parents' marriage as an example. Then I had only everything in my experiences with men to just tell me this and that. But I had to
Exactly.
go within myself, find myself love, to say that I'm no longer any of those stories. Because if
Exactly.
I want to turn this, and I want to, if I want to turn this ship around and make it lasting, then I've got to do it in this direction. And that's why I'm saying that not many people will take the spiritual journey or even like go through therapists, because the pain is deep. It's
It is
hard to
deep.
really look at where it starts and where it ends. So,
Absolutely. Now, as you give that good example of this last relationship, it lasted 4 months, but you walking away, you didn't beat yourself up about it. Do you also see relationship as an experience that we all need to be okay with? Dating is not a bad thing. And if you realize when you're dating that there's something that you're not okay with, it is okay to step away. Do you think society has made people feel like a failure? Society has made people feel like, well, why are you dating so many people? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? You need to find somebody and stick with it.
is it okay? I
What are your thoughts on that?
I feel it's okay if I feel it's okay when the relationship starts becoming toxic, because here's the thing
Mm-hmm.
that happens is, I get it, because it's always like you're going to show like how committed you are.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, remember, we all bring healthy patterns. That's the thing. We never fully recover from these last relationships, that you don't even understand that you have these unhealthy patterns. And so
Absolutely.
now, when you're bringing them both to the table and it's toxic, where one is giving in an energy form and another one is taking, there's not that full cycle. I know that this is audio, but it's like in a fully loving relationship, there's give and take, and the energy kind of goes back and forth, like
Mm-hmm.
balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in other like unhealthy and toxic relationship, there's always one taking and pulling the energy of the other person,
Absolutely. Yep. I
right?
agree 100% with that.
And you can feel it too, because when either someone is more manipulating, you can feel the other person who's being taken from, is their energy is drained.
Yes.
But then there's nothing to give them love. Or it can be manipulating, where they, I'm pretty sure, Shirley, with the podcast, you've heard so many different types of relationships.
An extreme amount. I heard there was one woman that was being like pimped in the relationship. It was just like, I couldn't even believe she told me, and such
Right.
a sweetheart. And it's just like, that's why I'm telling you, the stories are phenomenal
Mm-hmm.
that are shared. And yeah, I
And the
totally understand the
courage to
given.
share that.
Oh my gosh, the courage to share it. Molestation, sexual abuse,
Mm-hmm.
drug situations, FBI having to be involved, a tremendous amount of infidelity. There has not been a woman I have spoken to that hasn't engaged in some type of infidelity or dealing with someone and then finding out they were with someone and they didn't share that to them in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form.
That's that's what I'm saying. That's why we have all this toxic behavior, unconscious
Yes.
behavior.
And you're right. You're taking your leftover baggage. You're never fully,
Mm-hmm.
completely 100% healed. So from the first relationship you enter to the second relationship, to the third, to the fourth, to the fifth, to the sixth, you're
Mm-hmm.
taking a little bit of baggage from each one of them.
Yes.
And you don't even realize it.
And you
You
don't
don't
even realize it.
subconsciously realize you're doing it. You know, your sixth relationship, that person might do something that upsets you from something from your second
Mm-hmm.
relationship, and you don't even realize it's happening.
Right.
But this is what happens. So I totally understand and agree with you.
Or if I was like, let's say for instance, I haven't been in anything like this, but if it was like if I had infidelity in my relationship, and then and then I continued to stay in it and not
Mm-hmm.
realize, I only had that example. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Or
Mm-hmm.
you're like, what I'm saying is, you're noticing like standout driven women that are just killing it in their businesses and everything, and yet they're in these really toxic relationship. Like, how much of a mind fuck is that?
It is a mind fuck. It's a
Yeah.
total mind fuck, but I can understand why now through therapy, through my own situation that I've been in, why women do that. Because that's something you have control over, that
Mm-hmm.
you have power over that
Over.
business. You have power, you know, as like the queen in the home. So you're running your household and you feel like that's something you have control over because here it is, your significant other, you're losing control of that situation, or something's being done that is hurting you, and you don't know how to soothe it. They don't know how to soothe it. And the thing is, when two people are in relationships, it is a give or take. But there are times where there's someone that always feel like they're taking all the
Taking.
little bit of emotional energy that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's draining. It really is draining.
It
It's
is.
awful. Now, have you ever had any infidelity in any of your relationships by
As
either
far
you or the other party?
as far as I know, no. I it, but let's just say this though, Shirley. In some cases where my relationships have ended like 4 to 6 months, and then the guy disappears, I don't know. I don't know if I've been left for someone else. That's
Gotcha.
what.
I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
That, do you
But
get what
like
I'm
your
saying?
divorce, I totally get what you're saying. But your divorce, it wasn't pertaining to infidelity. It was just you guys couldn't work it out and you separated.
Yes, we couldn't work it out. For us, I feel like, because I was 26 at the time, I think he was 28. I think we didn't know each other very well.
Got it.
That was another thing. So we hopped into this relationship, and there's nothing wrong with like it's forging a relationship, but I ended up getting pregnant too, like 6 months into the relationship.
Got it.
And
Got it. And
then
how did you get
traditionally,
pregnant to this man and not the one before that you had been with in a long time? You didn't want a child with that first guy
well,
before
no,
your
it's
ex-husband?
that, and that was interesting though, that did you say that, because naturally, and you asked really good questions, really. So the 5 year relationship, I was just like, I'd been in it so long, really standout guy, amazing guy, even to this day. Like, we still have each other on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, oh, we've been together for 5 years. The next best step is like, getting married and all that kind of stuff. Little did I know, I was asking, you know what I mean? If I look back at 26, right, and now
Mm-hmm.
coming fast forward to everything I experienced, but that's what I was thinking. And I don't think that he was ready. And so I was just like, okay, well, if you're not ready, then how do I know that I'm really the one for you? And so we stopped dating, and then I jumped into this next relationship, you know, pretty
Hold
quickly.
on before you continue. So you ended that 5-year relationship simply because he was not ready to get married?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let me ask you woman to woman, because and the reason I'm asking you this question is I was a woman where I knew I wanted children before, if I wasn't married or not. Now I know typically you date, you get married, then you create a family. You don't do it how I did it, where you have a family, then you possibly get married. We've been together 23 years. We're not legally married in the eyes of New Jersey. I'll call him my husband. I'll call him my significant other. Whatever title I feel like giving him is what I'm calling him. I don't need society's significance to decide on what I'm going to classify this man as. Now, some people who are listening to this might be upset, especially Christians, because a husband is an important figure. Is marriage important to me? Yes. but having children was always more important to me than getting married. So this is why I'm asking you this question based on me of if he was a great man and the package was all there, if he needed 2 more years, what's the reason you didn't want to wait?
I just felt like that 5 years is long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that growing up, and that's what I'm saying, coming out this far, you can look back and see that now.
Yeah.
But it
and
just,
you said that. You said that.
But you see that from a traditional sense, like how society paints it or how we were raised by our parents. It's like, oh, all of them, you know, they whether they migrated or a lot of them got married in their early 20s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So naturally, you'll think that you follow suit that way. Plus, that was another thing. I had other girlfriends already starting to get married and all that kind of stuff. And that's where it just becomes wrong because society has so much of that influence on us. And I really feel for the kids now. Just like what you were saying. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram for us growing up. Imagine how much more the pressure is now.
A lot more. And visually, the visual
like
pressure they're seeing.
It's just...
Yeah, like your body needs to look a certain way. Like when I was growing up, having a big butt was not a big thing. That was not talked about. You didn't talk about that. BBL surgery was like, okay, we knew people did it, but it wasn't like, that's what you need to do. No, little booties were in.
Right?
When we were growing up, little booties were in.
What are you talking about? Like the BBLs and then the cinched waist.
The cinched waist, the hips. I mean, I'm not hippie and I don't have a big booty. These are things when we were growing up, that wasn't a big thing back then. Now it's like you need little waist, big booty, hips, and that's fine. Your body is your agency. You do what you want. But I think in my 14-year-old, I'm like, that is not reality. Okay?
No,
It's
but
really not.
It's interesting though, right? And you look at all of these celebrities, you're like, wow, I didn't even know the body can do that. Right?
Exactly.
It's like you have a waist this thin and
very
then the
small
booty
waist.
like...
And the thing is, it's 90% of it is not natural. Like when you look at someone who really, truly, I follow this young lady on Instagram that works out every day faithfully. She's been doing it for years. You saw the transformation of her body. When I tell you this woman is absolutely gorgeous and her body looks phenomenal, words cannot describe. But the hard work she puts in on a daily basis, I applaud her more than, let me make an appointment with my plastic surgeon and see what my availability is so my body can be structured. That's what Shirley, I won't do. I will walk around with my little round circumference until I can get off of my lazy ass and do some sit-ups and do some squats and do something to work for that body because it looks differently when you actually work for it as opposed to when you're going under the knife. People's body is their agency. They do what they want. I'm not dogging y'all. I'm just saying it's not something I want to do. I will walk around with my little booty, my barely any hips. I'm not a hippie girl at all, and I'm proud of it.
Right. And you know, I was just gonna make a comment. I was gonna say, if you even just generalize it, and it's not like wanting to like judge people, but if you look at the comparison about someone that really puts the hard work into their body, it's different from a person that...
Oh my gosh, you could even see it in the arms, Liza. You can look at someone's arms and tell immediately you work out, but you don't, because there's a contour that your body has when you're working out. Your muscles are defined. Things look different.
They do. You're making me want to work out now, Shirley. I'm all like,
girl, I need to work out every day. I'm talking about mental inspiration. I'm not really getting into anything serious, but I look at that girl every day. I was like, girl, one day, right? Right.
One day, someday. But I do want to make, just for the audience purposes, there are women that I've known that have amazing ethics. I mean, like, or workout like regimens. And there are, as you know, for those that are mommies, there are places that just cannot be worked out. no matter how hard you try. So for those women that do decide to go that plastic surgery route, I bow down to you, because I'll say fair enough. You know what I mean? If you've worked that hard on,
I get it. I get it. You know,
yeah,
that little extra flab with all
that
the
the
stretch marks. I understand if you need to remove that extra skin. I get that. I get it. That's why I say their body is their agency. They do what they want. But it's just,
right.
I'm just not doing it. I told you I will walk around with my little round circumference and wear a girdle, which when I was a little girl, I was like, why people wear that? Now I'm almost 40. I know
Girdles
why
and
people wear
Spanx.
that. Girdles are in.
Right? Girdles are in Spanx, sensual, like
I
waist
know.
cinchers. I was just like,
Exactly.
dang. I was like, I'm not. Yeah, I was like, people need to bring me up to date on this stuff.
Okay. So now let's talk about 8 billion. And after mom passing,
Mhm.
what sparked you to do that, Miss Real Estate? Because you've been before this, that's what you did, real estate
Mhm.
primarily, right?
Yeah,
And you're still doing it. But what
I am still doing it. Yeah.
provoked you to do 8 billion? You said it was your mother, but why?
Well, there is, like I said, I felt like from a young age, like I
Mm-hmm.
told you, I've always felt like I've had this really big heart. But then also, like society would tell you, go make money, be a philanthropist, but you can't be a humanitarian and give unless you have money, right?
Got
So
it. Got it.
I've tried multiple times, even previous to when my mom passed, to like try and do some things that were, of service to others and just in small projects. But it really wasn't until the loss of my mom where I thought I was going to fill these shoes of being the head of the Myriad Group and all this kind of stuff, and just this outstanding real estate person.
Mm-hmm.
Did I start to, like I said, I went through another journey of spiritual awakening, because even in then it was like I said, it was the patterns of relationships with
Mm-hmm.
like men I had to really look in on, hone in on, and to really like love myself. But in that process also of wanting to feel like, or feeling that I need to fill my mom's shoes, I just really felt her loving guidance. And she did not only lead me to still being really strong in real estate, but she led me down a path that I feel was really more was really more in line with what I did best. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was younger, she would always have me host some of these parties and like these
Oh.
nonprofit organizations. And she always thought I was really great at public speaking, or she always encouraged me to become a coach. So in an odd way, I knew my mom could see something brighter in me than I could see in myself. But there
Got it.
was many years of severe, like, unworthiness and confidence levels that I couldn't probably see this in myself. So of course I end up taking that journey, like to self-healing. It was
Mm-hmm.
a very much spiritual journey, but it
Mm-hmm.
also entailed like having to go through like, meditation coaches and getting real with myself, clearing my energy.
Mm-hmm.
But through that, in the beginning of 2020, what ended up happening was I said yes to a calling. So I felt like I was, I had an imparting by God, spirit, source, whichever people would like to call it. And I was asked to go, go down this spiritual route and be in service of others. Now I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. In fact, I thought that it was going to be more business to business connections and connecting
Mm-hmm.
people. What I didn't know was last summer in July of 2020, because I had this real big heart to doing some service in the Philippines. I heard God say, okay, it's time to start. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, I looked down on my phone, and my friend had started a live streaming app in the Philippines, and it just absolutely blew up because of the pandemic.
Oh.
And then I said, I'm going to live stream. And they're like, yes, you're going to live stream. And I was just like, I'm not doing that, because that's for all these 20-year-olds. I'm just like, I'm going to look like a retard trying to live stream. You know what I mean? Like, who is this? Who is this old woman on here?
You are
Well,
not old. We're young, girl.
yeah, no, exactly. Now, now that I've seen like the live streaming and podcasting world, and it's just amazing, everyone that's coming up from everywhere. They are like starting
Mm-hmm.
to be so empowered.
Yes.
Now, I started that live streaming app, and then I also heard, these spiritual downloads and impartings. They said like, you'll know it's successful if it's, you'll know this is the direction you want to go in if it's successful. Well, sure enough, my first 3 months of live stream, I killed it. Like all my friends and family joined in. I had all these interviews, and I was so good at it. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it was almost like a hidden talent I never knew that I had. You know what I mean? Like
That's
I could
good.
talk clearly. And then what ended up happening was someone asked me if I thought about starting a podcast, and I said no. They are like, because at least from that perspective, it could be recorded and then you could shoot
Hmm.
it out. Whereas on live streaming, they would have to be available only when I live stream.
At that moment. True.
Hmm.
True.
So I decided to start the 8 Billion podcast in October of 2020, and I decided to take it global. And ever since then, I mean, the blessings have poured in abundantly, meaning to say, like, I've I've interviewed people from here, of course, United States, Philippines, Australia, the UK, Canada, Jamaica, and the list just keeps growing.
Yes, it is a blessing. I can tell you, being a podcast host myself, I get it. My furthest now has been Hong Kong, and she is phenomenal. My little sweetheart. I always have to tell myself she's 10 hours ahead of me. So the other day we were podcasting, I was like, I'm speaking into the future. Because it was like 8
Right?
o'clock in the morning for her. Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning for her and 9 o'clock in the morning for me at night.
Yeah,
So the people you meet is
right.
amazing, and the places and where they are, it's awesome. It's
It
awesome.
I just don't think, like, if the pandemic didn't happen, a lot of these things just wouldn't happen for a lot of people, or the connections you make. It's like
Yes,
literally connecting all around the world.
absolutely. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So where does things go from here now with the 8 billion podcasts? How do you feel? Because your anniversary is coming up next month. And you
Well,
said you're going to start season 3 or season 4?
four. Season
Season
four.
4. And how do you feel about that? 1 year in. What's your next goal for next year?
So, really this has always been such a global vision, and it's perfect right now, depending, because of the state of, the whole pandemic, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
still able to connect with people all around the world. So I'll continue to put out podcasts. I'd like to now go from 1 week to doing two, probably releasing two, but
2 a
bigger
week?
vision. 2 a week. I won't do
Oh,
maybe season
look
four, but
at
I
Big
really
Mama. 2 a week, girl.
well, let's see. I'm all like, you know what I mean? Maybe sometimes my God's always like, oh, your vision's too big, and let's just make it a little bit smaller first, in bite sizes.
Well, do you
But
post every week? Let me ask you.
well,
Like,
I do.
okay.
Are you talking about posting like social media?
Nope. So like you started in October. Do you post every week or is there a break within the season?
Great question. I had always intended, when I started, to want to go like back to back, all the way around, but I did find for myself I was getting a little bit, like burnt out. So I did decide to do seasons. And when I
Got
do
it.
break, I only break for 1 month, if that.
Got it. Got it.
Hmm.
Understandable. So there's a small break in between the seasons. And then how long are your seasons?
So far they've been 15 episodes.
Oh, so roughly approximately give or take each season is about 15 episodes.
About
So
15
so
episodes.
that would make sense. 15, 15, you're already at 30, another 15, you're already at 45. So I see why
45.
you mean the 1 month break in between, and
In
that
between.
equals to like the 52 weeks. So within the seasons, possibly in the future, you're thinking about doing two
Two
episodes a week
podcasts a week.
instead of
Mhm.
one. So that 15 is going to be 30 episodes within a season.
Potentially, if I can do it, because remember, for me with 8 billion, it's all about sharing people's stories, right?
True.
none of my None of my content would be time sensitive.
Okay,
It would
got it.
just be more, I just have to be mindful that I have to let my guests know, if they're batched for the season, are they going to be released closer to the end of the 3 months, right?
Got it. Got it.
That's why I'm saying it's becoming more and more real, like realistic for me to release two podcasts a week, so then they don't fall so far behind from when I did record them. Because like right now, like I'm wrapping up season 3, but some of these guys have been recorded back in June or
Oh,
end of May.
you, oh, Let me give you a little funny story about me. I work very far in advance. You know, I'm a woman of a multiple stream of incomes. I'm a flight attendant. I'm a real estate agent. I'm a mommy. I'm a wife. And I need time to myself. The person that I just released yesterday, because what's today? What's today? What is today? Today's
Today is
Wednesday.
September 8th.
We're both off.
We're both
Today is
off.
Wednesday. So yesterday was Tuesday. My podcast released normally every Tuesday, unless there's a week I'm doing two, it'll be Wednesday. Girl, take a wild guess when I did her recording.
The one you released yesterday?
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay, well, here's the thing. You started, I know you launched this year, but you started recording in 2020.
I
and
did.
Surely, I know you are a planner.
Uh-huh.
So let me think. So, oh my gosh. Tell me, I would say, if we're going to laugh, you recorded her end of last year or first quarter of this year.
Exactly. February. And she was just released yesterday. You get the point I'm trying to make?
I totally get the point you're making.
Yeah, don't feel bad. Like, you're feeling bad because you're recording these people and you don't want them to wait 6 months. Like, honey, this is not how this works. I mean, a movie takes 2 years for them to prepare, and then they have to do all they got to do. When the movie comes out, they've been done for years.
They've been done for years. It's true.
Girl.
And they couldn't say
Listen.
anything. I'm all like, oh, I have some time before the release of this podcast.
Yeah, like they'll be okay though. And and I always tell people, if you have additional information when you're about to release, I always, when we're done, I'm gonna give you an approximate date.
Yeah.
And if there's anything additional you want to give me during that time, some people might have some promotions or stuff going on they want to give me, that's fine. But
Yeah.
this is when it's going to be done. It's not up for discussion. Like,
Right. So maybe to the audience, I just want to let you know that probably by the time you see this, I'll be in season 5.
I know you probably will be. You'll probably be ending your season 4,
I'll
starting
probably
your
ending my
season 5.
4.
But
I want
this
to let
one
you know that
actually,
I'm super happy going into my anniversary.
it'll be
It's
way
been the
past
one
your anniversary.
tried and true thing in my life more than in a relationship.
Oh, okay.
But
So
I
we're going
love
to be
it.
wrapping up. Lisa, it was awesome talking to you today. So before we go, what word of advice do you have to share with our listeners out there from the relationship you've had with your mother, um, your childhood experience, the relationship with yourself, your personal life, your romantic relationships? What word of advice do you have to offer to our ladies that might be going through something, not really truly loving themselves, hiding behind a facade because they're going through something and they don't know how to deal with it?
Well, to be honest, Shirley, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure to be on this amazing podcast. And to the audience, I just want to let you guys know that take the journey inward. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be a spiritual one. It also just has to do with the most important person you're going to have a relationship with is with yourself. Because when you understand and know yourself and you know your patterns, you know your trauma and everything that you've had to deal with growing up, and then, of course, sharing yourself into a relationship, you'll have a better understanding of how to navigate through it. You'll have a better scope of being able to feel it energetically when either you're giving too much or you're taking too much. But understanding yourself and loving yourself doesn't mean you're a selfish person. It just means take the journey inward and understand, so you're not carrying that baggage over and over into other relationships, or it doesn't spill over into into children and generational, like what we were saying, curses or anything like that. I think that we are in times that are unprecedented in human history. And of course, like I said, the hope of 8 billion is to really take this standpoint of being able to have people have a platform for their own voice, to stand in their divine power. And the only way that you can do that is for you to be able to understand yourself. So take the journey inward. Start with the smallest steps. If it's just, listening here in Shirley's podcast, you guys are really probably super empowered women. So I'm pretty sure many of you guys know this journey. But if you are empowered already, you've taken the journey inward, stand in your power, be your own divine feminine energy.
Never, and realize you should never give it away. You should never take others. There's more than enough power within yourself to really, change this world. So
Absolutely. I love every bit of what you're saying. Stand in your power. And of course, that's why we're called Regain Your Power. Don't let the negative defeat you. We all have a story. Everyone's story is different. Um, Everyone's story is a different size. One story may be bigger than the other. One story may be a little extreme than the other. And that's okay. But remain in your power. And I want to thank you for being a guest. It was phenomenal talking to you. And as always, thank you guys for listening. And love yourself, voice yourself, and be yourself. Until the next podcast, guys, have a great one. Thanks for tuning in to Fanpale Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or share your takeaways, I want to hear from you. Head on over to the website or join our Facebook community and comment your favorite part of the show or share your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Chat with you next week.